Well, welcome to Downhome Corner. I'm your host, Steve Bijou, and joining me is the Mayor of Campbellton, New Brunswick, Stephanie Anglehart-Paulin. Thanks for joining us again, Stephanie.
Well, thanks for having me, Steve.
When we last talked, it was a few days ago. It was on, I believe, Thursday morning. That was what, the 4th? We're at the 6th now, 6th of June today. The 4th of June, and at that point we were speaking and you were updating me on the numbers. And not a half hour later, after we finished and hung up, we experienced our first death in Campbellton and first death in New Brunswick due to COVID-19. What's the feeling back home right now?
It's heavy. We all knew that it was a possibility and it could happen, but it never happens to you. It happens to someone else. So
it seems, yeah.
We're sad.
The thing is too is, I think of me living near Ottawa, and I think of in Ottawa there could be hundreds of deaths over this point. I don't know anybody. I don't know any of the people who have died. The difference, of course, in a small town is just about everybody either knows that person or knows that family, and if not, then you know somebody who does. I think that's a hard thing that the town would be struggling with right now, because a lot of people know this individual. It's not just a number. It's a name. It's a face.
It's a name. It's a face. It's someone's dad. It's someone's grandfather. It's a resident of our communities. It's a man that was heavily involved in union business. He's touched a lot of people, and without knowing him, he had a big family. So we all know one of the kids or multiples of them. So, yeah, it's not something that should happen to anyone, really.
It's sad for sure. So, I mean, as sad as it is, we hope that is the only case, and we hope there's no more going forward, of course. But where do we sit right now? Any new cases, or what's our total at right now?
Well, right now we have a total of 14 cases. There's one still in ICU. We have 300 people in isolation. So those people there were the direct contact tracing with the doctor. So it would have been the sister, the nurse, the brother, the whatever. So they've done, and all those people have been in quarantine. They have another 8 or 9 days to go, and they've all been tested. And so far we've only had a couple that have come out of those 300. So yesterday was our first day with 0 new cases on the 5th. So they're saying 14 days. If we can keep that up, it'll be the 20th that we could go back to the yellow.
There was quite a bit of testing going on, too, down at the Civic Center, and then the tracing that went along with it. Can you describe how that went?
Oh, that was something else. Having done my Facebook Live and only doing it to try and preoccupy my mind to get out of the anxiety I was feeling, getting out of my bubble since March.
This was you filming yourself on Facebook going to get the test, right? Yeah, that's a great video.
Right. Well, I mean, CBC picked it up, and I'm glad they kind of edited out the little crazy little things that I was saying in between. But it was neat. You just stand in line, they look at your Medicare card, they make you wash your hands, and then you follow the arrows to the next table, and then they get the little stickers ready for the testing that goes to the next table, and then they swab you, and out the back door you went. So you didn't come in the same way you went out. You come in the front, you went out the back.
The video certainly had an impact. It had over 25,000 views last time I checked on it. 25,000. That's quite a bit of exposure, and that's good exposure for the city as well. But I think it was very helpful, and you had mentioned too earlier that a few people who were debating or maybe going to put off getting testing after they saw the video said, well, if she's got anxiety and still can go, then I can go too, So I think you probably inspired a few people with the video.
Oh, I certainly did. There's a couple of ladies that messaged me after and said, look, we were really nervous about going out, but you made it look so easy, and it was as easy as it looked. So there was nothing to be afraid of. It was just being afraid of fear itself, I guess.
So if somebody still wanted to be tested, could they still at this point by calling 811 or what?
Yes, but they'd have to be showing some symptoms. The reason that they opened it up to everyone was they wanted to see if it was community spread. Yes, with the 300 contact tracing that they provided, they were afraid that it had possibly spread through the community, like grocery stores, pharmacies, that other people would have gotten it. So out of I believe it was like 2,800 people that got tested. I do not believe there were any that were coming back positive. So that's why they just closed it down for the open one and back down to the 2 symptoms.
And the good thing, I like the way you described it too. You said it was about taking a snapshot of the area. You don't have to test every single person, because you could come up with a whole bunch of false negatives doing it that way as well. You just need an average or a certain number where that kind of balances out, and then you kind of see what's going on. So, did people seem like, were they afraid? Was there a lot of anxiety, or were they just happy to go get tested? Like, what was the general mood?
We were in such shock knowing that COVID-19 was in our community that everybody wanted to go get tested. The ones that didn't, I did get messages from some ladies and some gentlemen that couldn't get out of the bubble, and they really felt bad because they didn't go to get tested. But like I made them understand, is just what you said. Not everybody needed to be tested, and if you've been in your bubble since March, you have nothing to worry about. You've been in your bubble. It's for those that have been out and about and gone to the grocery stores and the pharmacies and the gas stations, whereas I don't do any of that either. So I wasn't expecting a positive test. But I knew that just for the sake of being the leader of this community and this, everybody was watching, so I knew I had to go. But I had very, very little risk because I hadn't been out of my bubble.
The line of the year goes to Margot Ferguson. She said something on Facebook about, she said, all of my friends on Facebook back home are posting negative. She said, I had no idea that many of my friends thought they were pregnant, or something to that effect. And I just thought that's good. You need something light in this, and that's perfect. And
absolutely.
I wanted to write her back saying, hey, I wanted to comment saying, it must have really freaked you out when you saw all the men doing it,
Oh, for sure. And we all made a joke out of it, and then somebody and then someone like Margot comes out with something like this. So then everybody that had already put their test out on as a post, we're all sitting there shaking our head going, oh, yeah, too funny.
I thought it was a great line for sure.
Yeah.
So the area is still orange, is that correct, or is it?
That's right. We're still in the orange, and we have, like I said, about 8 or 9 days to go back to the yellow and get a haircut.
There, yeah. It sounds like a song. It sounds like a George Thorogood song right there, But
yeah, get a haircut.
But I got to say, I'm pretty proud of the region for that. In some of the more metropolitan areas and some of the bigger cities, the social distancing and the masks and the taking precautions is not taking as serious. And I find in the rural areas and the smaller areas, it really it's taken a lot more serious. When New Brunswick went through this point with the amount of cases that we've had, there are a lot of people pointing to the reasons why, and rightly so, because of the less airports and the less travel that comes in and out of the province. But there's still that one factor, and that's, I think, the most important factor, is people got behind the idea. And when you said, look, we've got to protect the elderly and we've got to protect other people, then I really felt that the region did get behind it quite well, more than a lot of areas. So that's something I think you can be proud of, at least for the city, for doing that. It's they really got they really got in the game on it,
That's right. And I mean, where our population is 60% is over the age of 50. So they knew that this wasn't a joke, and it wasn't. The younger kids had a little harder time, but I mean, we don't have hundreds of thousands of kids, so it's easy to kind of keep the reins on them. So it was tough at first. They still wanted to hang out at Sobeys, but so we'd have to get the police to shoo them away. But we wanted to make sure that they just understood that we needed to shut down and stop, because that's the only way the virus moves is if we move it, right? So in order to stop, and I mean, everybody did, essentials like going to the grocery store once a week for people that usually go every day was a big deal. Like, there's some people that only shop. They go into the deli every day and pick up their lunch or their supper. So to have them only shop once a week, I'm sure there was an adjustment for all and a lot of people around. So I know it was tough, but we got through it. And what it did is it brought you back to the basics again. Being mayor, I've met myself at the door coming out sometimes, going somewhere and going to work and, going to an event or whatever. And my family haven't seen me in 4 years. I've been home for 3 months. So I don't know, but they might be ready for me to go out again. But I think this is pretty awesome that I get to spend all this time at home. I've missed them.
So there are silver linings in the lockdown sometimes, huh?
There is. There was for me, only because I've been so busy. So yeah.
How's the hatefulness going? For a while, there were people bashing anybody from Zone 5, and there were stories of campgrounds didn't want to allow people in who they thought were from Campbellton in the area in Zone 5. What's going on now?
Well, there are still businesses in different regions that are asking, have you been in Campbellton in the last 14 days? There's a question before you're allowed in. We've had businesses in Bathurst post signs on their door, if you're from Region 5, you're not welcome. It's been pretty awful, really. We're the first ones to support everyone, and we were the first one pushed under the bus by everybody. We didn't bring it here. We had done pretty good, I thought. So, it's not easy to listen to people pick on us, basically. They're pointing the finger like we're a bunch of lepers. And the 300 people that could possibly have it are already in quarantine. It's not the rest of us. So if someone needs to travel for work, they shouldn't be pointed out in the middle of a mall or humiliated saying, go back to Zone 5. So it's getting nasty, and it's sad because we all have a connection to Campbellton, and those people that are pointing probably have someone that's come or from here or related to someone here. So we all have that connection. So yeah. It's awesome. It's just wonderful. What a feeling.
Well, here's the thing, some of these areas that are, and some of these businesses, like you say, travel through the province is quite common. So down the road, these businesses are going to be remembered, and people coming from Campbellton, may say, hey, we don't want to give you business. We'll go across the street. They weren't picking on us during the pandemic.
And we're New Brunswickers. We've always stuck together. So I know that they're looking at this as it's not their problem. Well, the day that it happens there, the shoe will be on the other foot. And I know that we won't be doing the same for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on the other side of the coin, you just participated in an anti-racism video.
Oh, I did. I was asked by the Lieutenant Governor's office if I wanted to participate. And it was 2 lines, and I got to do the French side because I do speak French. So I got and I didn't hear about it yet. And so it should be, they said the weekend, so I imagine by the beginning of the week, time was of the essence with everything going on in the United States and everything. So they wanted to get it out.
Well, that's great. It's nice that the mayor of Campbellton participates in a public service announcement on anti-racism, because, look, nobody wins with racism. And right. And when people put stuff online, they don't realize the consequences. There are there are going
There's
to
big
be
ones.
yeah. Well, I mean, like it down the road, people will go back and find this stuff, and if you've looking for a new career somewhere, and people go onto your social media and see something that you posted that's racist, but I mean, like in the end too, it could stop other doctors and professionals and really talented people from coming to the area when we need them for those positions. So,
well, the city of Campbellton received a letter this week from 2 doctors in the medical school at Dow, saying that if the province of New Brunswick did not come out and or the city of Campbellton didn't come out and apologize on how this patient was treated, because he's not only a doctor but he's a patient as well, that they would not come and do their locum here. And their locum is their apprenticeship, or their stage, as you call it in French. So they've already written a letter to the city of Campbellton that I forwarded off to the Premier for him to deal with, because I don't think this is my kettle of fish. I think this is bigger than me. So it's up to the Department of Health to contact those 2 doctors in Halifax and make sure that that's not the case, because we aren't racist in Campbellton. We've always had doctors from outside. And I absolutely need doctors in Campbellton, because we can't be going to Moncton all the time.
yeah, well, I mean, it's a supply and demand issue. And look, you want the most talented person, or the person that's qualified for the job, and you don't want to start playing politics with people's lives. That's for sure. So, I mean, and also the man has a daughter. And if you attack him because of the country he's from or the color of his skin, you're doing the same thing to her. And it's just not fair to her. I mean, the sins of the father shouldn't affect the daughter. Here's the thing. The last couple of times we've spoken, I wanted to share this story with you about racism, and I didn't. And I want to do it now, if you'll indulge me here for a second. But
Sure.
I have a friend of mine named Asia. Asia is one of the most beautiful people you'll ever meet. Okay, she's kind, she's compassionate, she's courteous. She's involved in the community. She volunteers. Here's the kind of person she is. One day on Facebook, she went on and said, "I have 4 or 5 days off, and I'm looking for something to do. Does somebody know of an organization I can volunteer some time at this week?" How many people go on social media and ask, looking
right.
for volunteer organizations, say, "I'm available, call me." That's the type of person she is, and she is probably more Canadian than most Canadians I know. Like the values that she shares, and look, I could go on and on. She's just a great person. Well, one day, recently, she's standing at a bus stop. And it was after a fitness class. Okay, she may have even taught that class. I'm not sure. But afterwards, she's standing at this bus stop, and out of the blue, this crazed woman comes yelling and screaming at her, yelling, "Go back to your country, and you're ruining our country." And she went on, and she attacked Asia, okay? And the next day, I saw the pictures, and look, I wept. Okay, when you say you weep about something.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we all cry over certain things, but when you sob and you just, because it saddened me so much that anybody would want to hurt this beautiful person for no reason whatsoever. And so when I think of people bashing other people because of where they're from, or the color of their skin, or whatever,
Yeah.
I think of Asia.
No, it's not acceptable.
And you know what? And here's the thing. I call her up, and I say, "Look, Asia, I'm so sorry what happened," and all this type of thing. She says, "Yes, thank you. But look, I've been through this before, and realistically, it'll happen again."
Wow.
It just drops your jaw, So that's why I don't want to see people attack this doctor because of the country he's from, or the color of his skin, or anything else. Look, anything else you're angry at him, justifiably so. If you're angry because you feel he wronged our community, you have that right.
That's right.
Call him anything you want, but not racist stuff. That's all, because in the end, look, his daughter's going to pay for this.
Blood.
That's right.
We all have the same color blood.
And that's it. And that's, look, I don't want to rant, but when I think of racism, that's what hits me. When you have a face of somebody that that is affected by it, and it's easy.
It becomes real.
That's right. In the region where we grew up, there's not a lot of people of color there, but there's a lot of indigenous people. And attacking black people, you start attacking indigenous people as well.
Same. Right.
So
you're doing the same.
Absolutely, and it's gonna. And if not, you'll be able to progress.
Yes, don't worry.
So I don't want to see anybody in the region attacked because of the color of their skin. I don't want to see our indigenous friends attacked or our Asian friends or anybody.
Speak either, because I mean we've had our issues with just English and French, let alone other countries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like we've had our own differences. So we can't be looking at other people and thinking they're better than we are, because we have to look in the mirror first.
Yeah. And helping somebody else out does not take something away from you. And look,
that's right.
The region, the Campbellton region and the North Shore region, when I came back home a number of years ago and I got back on a radio after not being there for a number of years, and I was so poor, I was living in my parents' basement, my community carried me. And they showed me how much they helped each other. And every single week I was inspired by stories of different families being helped by different groups of people. And right. I know people back home in the North Shore region have big, big hearts. And really, they put their arms around people. That's how it works in our community. So let's do that. That's the message we want to portray, not the other. That's right. Yeah, share the love, not the hatred. Don't be so hateful. That's right. Don't be so hateful. As I heard growing up quite a bit back home. The grunge. No, I heard it. No, I heard it from people. Anyway, anything else that we didn't cover that you want to get in there today? No, but stay in touch. There's always something happening. So. We'll update you as soon as we know something else. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you keeping in touch with us on this, too, because there's a lot of people from back home that are living elsewhere that get to hear the news this way, of what's happening. And, it's sure. And they can all look me up on Facebook as well and watch my live so that they know what's going on here. That's right. Not what's going on in Moncton or St. John, but what's going on in Campbellton. That's right. You do Facebook Lives on a regular basis. So good. Yes. Yeah. Well, Mayor Stephanie Anglehart-Paulin, thanks again, and we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, Steve. Take care.